Have you heard of this irreducible complexity concept in biochemistry? Irreducible complexity, where imagine like a mousetrap. This mousetrap is a component. They are fitted together in a way when a mouse comes and it catches it.
You are getting out of space.
Individual components together, they can't come in and make this final product. So there are things which are irreducibly complex. One of the biochemists known as Michael Behe, who's a creationist, but that's not his fault, that he's not a scientist because he's a creationist in his theology, but he's a biochemist. He wrote a book called Irreducible Complexity, and if you read the examples he's given, the bacterial flagella and things like this, you cannot just explain them with the natural process of spontaneity and mutation to bring something like this. It doesn't happen.
No, but every living thing has a random chance of mutation. For example, like some people grow another finger and that. And with the natural selection, the goal is if that guy with one more finger has an advantage, he will survive. Or is a little bit faster, then he will survive. And then he will pass his genes with the 6 or whatever fingers, pass it. And so living beings will mutate and adapt to their situation.
Have you heard of silicon? A fish called silicon.
No.
Millions of years old. Still the same. Doesn't need to change, didn't change. It's bacteria. They're probably the most successful species.
So they adapt all the time.
But do they need to evolve into a human? They don't need to. So this kind of belief that, because of benefit,
involves in a human.
Yeah, because of benefit, things then evolve. No. There's a limit to how much you can change. There's a limit. Aren't we doing studies and crossbreeding with dogs?
No, it doesn't work.
Wait.
The DNA doesn't match.
Aren't we doing crossbreeding with dogs? With all this crossbreeding, have we made a dog into a zebra? Have we made a dog into an elephant?
But we made a wolf into a chihuahua.
No. Have we made a dog into an elephant by crossbreeding them? It's not going to happen. There is a species barrier. I mean, if you understand evolution, you would know that there is a barrier. You know, people studied with Drosophila. They did several experiments. The reason why they chose this because the life cycle is very fast, very quick. You can make several offsprings of this Drosophila. And they tried several kind of changes with half a wing, less wing, this. Still a Drosophila. You can't change into a totally different species.
But
so there is a limit to how much you can change.
They're not a constant.
So what we say, we can adapt because there's a flexibility maybe within our gene pool. But you can't then change human beings into an elephant.
No, of course not. And
why can nature do that? Because it's the way the limitation is there within our genetic pool.
It needs time.
So the idea that nature, which is blind, doesn't have consciousness. Nature, which does all of this, is not conscious, doesn't have a will. So how can it even direct anything? It's just a explanation of the process. It's
random mutations that human being or that animal will have an advantage over others. The other being dies and the other survive and spread.
Look, when you say random mutation, most random mutations is not going to produce something called active organ which is beneficial. It has to go through several processes and several steps.
Yeah, over time.
But in the interim, what was the benefit? There was no benefit.
They survived. That's the benefit.
No.
They adapt
when you have,
to their
imagine a species, for example, developing something like a hump here. It has no survival advantage, no benefit.
That's why.
If you think eventually this is going to be another arm which is going to be used, but this species doesn't know. You are assuming there is already a direction, a goal in plan.
There's no plan. No, we don't assume that.
Yeah, so why would that produce an advantage, a hump in an arm? Which you think eventually is going to be another arm?
No. I never said that.
Right. So when mutation produces this, it produces no advantage.
That's why it doesn't.
If it is not advanced, it is not going to develop.
Yeah. So then you cannot have another arm forming in the first place. Because to form another arm, it has to do several steps or processes, so eventually it forms another arm.
But it doesn't give an advantage. That's why it won't.
But I'm saying the concept that something's evolved because of mutation produces some benefit and then it passes on to the offspring and they then have another mutation and it develops. This is scientific. This is a dogmatism, belief that is being put forward to us to believe because we don't have to believe in a thing, which eventually will
I
say
don't
is
think
God.
even though that theory can be limited, I know because that is not, there is a lot of research about that. It's not anything new. That what is the source of the change and in what extent is necessary to develop a really change. But I don't think it's justified for God. I mean, it's a limited theory, but the
When you
science
say
can
God,
reach that.
you're automatically trying to debunk or refute
No,
or criticize something which has a baggage. I'm not even saying God, I'm saying this is a thing that exists eternally, an eternal, everlasting thing which is all-powerful because
Anyway.
nothing gave its power.
Returning to the main point, like the problem is, even though that exists, in which extent, we need that. Like, if the science is able, if the
Well,
science,
question about
one
need?
moment. If the science is able to fulfill all our needs, and actually it is, since the maybe second industrial revolution, like it's unparalleled. Like the nature is less, more and more discovered. You know why we need that thing? Why we need about that?
Okay, let me answer
In
that
which
question
extent
first.
we need that?
Let me answer that question in a very general way. The misconception that often people have is when we are developed in our science and technology, we don't need God or organized religion. We don't need this kind of guidance for anything. But this is where we are mistaken. For example,
The problem, I think, because
I want to give you an example.
The only scope where we need some guidance, where we can think about some other thing about more than science, is in the social materiality, but not in nature, because the science has discovered a lot of the nature, and there is not a space for both.
Let me give you a scientific example then.
One moment. But it's on society where we cannot understand things. For instance, crisis and wars and so on is something is opposing to the human mind, to the humankind. So I think the only reason to think about the existence of God is the source, is the social materiality, which is so spontaneous than it's against the human. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like,
But I want to give you an example which
of
are
God
based
is
on our understanding of science itself.
Okay.
Yeah, and why science fails us to give the guidance that we need. Yeah. So this is a scientific phenomenon that we understand, we realize, but we don't seek guidance from science from it, or even if we know. Right? Just to quickly wrap this up then, on this particular example. You see, according to science, we understand a lot of hygiene materials and matters of hygiene. Yeah? Hygienes, right? Right angle. Hygiene. We live in, at the moment here, we are here in Britain, right? Seems to be a very civilized society in science and technology and culture and so on, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
No doubt. Okay. When man urinates, they urinate usually standing.
Yes.
Why? Because most of these public places, or even in toilets, we are told to, in our culture, in our particular way of living, to urinate standing. And what happens? The ones which are designed only for urine. So you don't sit on them. The urinals, you don't sit on them, do you?
No,
They're
I mean,
designed to
you can't.
urinate.
I mean, you
No,
can
you can't.
if you really want.
They're not like commodes. They're not like commodes, right? Sorry to use this very mundane example, but it's important to highlight this point. So when you urinate, when man urinates standing, you know what happens? The urine spray comes all the back on your body.
I mean, I don't know how you urinate, but it doesn't happen.
I don't urinate standing, okay? I don't. This is already demonstrated by several experiments with UV light where it can show that urine, the fine spray comes to your body. Very unhygienic. But it seems to me this is in our NHS hospitals and various bodies and organizations and institutions. This is how men's urinals are designed. Did we not know that? We do. So contrast this with the teaching of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in Islam, right? He said, when you urinate, you have to urinate when you're sitting in a place where, so it doesn't come back to you anything. Now, it is very mundane teaching for you. For example, do I need divine guidance to tell me how to actually urinate? But if you think about it, without technological advancements, we still don't know which is the best way to urinate hygienically.
But it's
even
just
today.
laziness. It's just laziness.
It's not laziness. We don't practice it.
But I don't think there is a problem. No one is dying for this.
It's not about it's not about dying. It's about the best way to do things. Very unhygienic this way. Okay, I'm going to go even one step further. I apologize. I'm going to go further. Wait. I apologize. But I'll show you the Islamic teaching first. Islamic teaching is when we defecate, we clean it. And we should also wash it with water. If there's no water around, of course, you clean it with stones, whatever you have, materials, but we don't just leave it there. Now, think about it. If someone vomits on your hand, and you just wipe the vomit with a tissue, is that clean?
I see where you're going, but it's not the same.
In this country and elsewhere, we, with our technological advancements, we don't usually wash after we go to the toilet with water. There are toilet rolls being used to wipe. It doesn't clean it. So, with our technological advancements, where are we failing? Religion, we said, well, why do we need God? These mundane things of everyday living have been already explained by the Prophet of God, the Messenger of God, an agent of God who tells you how to live our life. This is just a mundane example. I can tell you about how to run a society, how to run crime and punishment system, and how to have a governance. Even that is included, because do you know what's killing our societies? Usury and interest. Is it best for us?
But I can go back. I really have to go back to the
religion,
Islam.
Islam tells us no. God declares, and His Messenger declares war on those who use interest.
That is the source of the capitalism. Without private interest, there is no industry, there is no medical things, there is nothing.
No. In Islam, when Islam was implemented, we didn't need to be capitalist or a communist or a socialist, but it thrived. It became the forefront of civilization. Look.
I would like to interrupt him all the time.
I will. I apologize. I would like to tell you, even the Lord of Bath had to go to the Islamic civilization in the Middle Ages and come back and establish one of the universities there, right? One of the universities. When the Islamic Spain had overground lighting system, underground switch system, here in Britain, the Queen of England didn't have a bath for a month, maybe. That's how bad it was compared to civilization we're talking about. So when Islam came,
This is any scientific.
You think they brought it from Saudi Arabia at the back?
when Islam came, it brought about a revolution
They brought the channels
in science
and the bath
and
from
technology.
Saudi Arabia to Spain?
He's just a heckler. You can ignore him.
Explain.
When Islam came,
It was
what
something
were
that
the
Spain
Muslims?
was doing it.
One moment. What
It
were the
was
Muslims
Spain.
doing?
Spanish
You
people
know what?
were doing it.
You know what were the Muslims doing? They were starting afresh. Say, look, what do we know so far? Okay.
So you said the Muslim religion brought better points.
No. What I'm saying,
but the Piswa is sometimes
when
more
you said
hygienic.
we don't need religion, we don't need God. What's the need for it? This is partially my focus on. When we do have this need understood, look what happens. When Muslims were there, they looked at the reality. What do we know so far? They said, oh, look, there are so much works by the Greeks that we don't know the knowledge they had. They started learning Greek, translated it. The Hindus, so they started assimilating, collecting information, learning, and then they started contributing their own. So one of the reasons why you as a medical student will appreciate both of you, the reasons why in the Middle Ages, here in Europe, the canon of Ibn Sina, the canon of medicine, went through hundreds of years as a textbook, more than 17 editions, is because that was the thing. of knowledge about medicines and instruments for surgery and so on and so forth. They were developing, they were contributing. We have somehow become very lazy. That's why you don't see Islam as it was before.
Actually,
so my point,
Islam forbids science.
that's what I'm
They limit
refuting and
Islam
debunking.
slow down
No,
the
I am
scientific
debunking this
developments.
concept. Islam encouraged, because of that you had the Renaissance in Europe. If it wasn't because of Islam,
Islam slow down the scientific
you know what?
developments.
This is one humble
They
request.
burn the library.
Study. Islam never burned the libraries. Libraries of Islam were burnt, and
You burned by
those,
yourself.
listen, those, excuse me, no, the Tartars and the Genghis Khans or others, when they invaded Islam, they invaded and they destroyed. Some of the, I mean, look at the irony. Calculus. You study calculus? You study calculus in mathematics. How is it possible? Two individuals at the same time, here and there, coming up with the calculus, saying this is how calculus works. When we know the libraries were destroyed, books were in the water, but not all of them destroyed, some of them survived. Some people were very dishonest by taking this knowledge and say, it's my own. Many contributions like this.
You're saying that Leibniz and the other one, I don't know, but Leibniz took the calculus from.
How do you explain two people at the same time coming up with calculus theories at the same time?
It was not exactly at the same time, actually.
You can say, my humble suggestion to you is about the Renaissance that happened in Europe. And if it wasn't their contact with Islamic civilization in Spain and Morocco and places like this, would Europe ever come out from the Dark Ages? Remember, Dark Ages was only in
of
Europe,
course,
not in
of
Islamic
course,
land.
of course.
We were the peak of civilization.
Until you forbid science,
Who forbids science?
the
Dark-
is
You only
Islam.
steal the
No.
Your prophet said
Islam-
science is bad.
Sorry.
Math
You
is
only
the
borrow the
devil's
science.
Did
word.
you hear what my friend said? Islam, if the Prophet said science was bad, which he didn't, you can't find a single quote that he
I
said
don't
so.
know it by heart.
You're
but I
welcome
know that
to
said
research
it's
it
bad.
and find out. And when you find out, as you can see, I come here and
I
walk
remember
quite
one.
often. Now, what you'll realize, Prophet encouraged. He says, it is mandatory, obligatory for every Muslim, male and female, to acquire knowledge. There is also a weak hadith which says, even if it's going to China, seek knowledge from there, right? Even if it's a weak hadith. We don't accept that, but I'm saying obligation of knowledge. Do you know our first guidance from God? Was it belief? It was iqra, read, recite. Yes, and God says in the Quran that He taught you by the pen. So Islam always
explain.
They were writing
always
before the
encouraged.
Quran.
Look,
They were
Islam
writing before the Quran.
always encouraged learning. That is why when Islam thrived in the first few centuries, they were naming the stars.
I know.
They were discovering instruments of optics,
The
on
alphabet,
surgery.
math.
I'm not saying everything, but they
No,
were
but-
developing. Why were they developing? Because the Quran says, travel along the land and inside the earth and see how God originated the creation. Travel and see. Don't you see? Don't you reflect? So always an encouragement. In fact, God reprimands us for not reflecting on
Yeah,
the
but
creation.
then they
of the universe.
changed. They said science is bad.
Those who said so, we oppose them because they're the ones
But they
who
did.
brought demise.
they
Yes,
did.
I agree with you partially because they became preoccupied with haram and women and wine and away from the teaching of Islam. And that's why Islamic civilization crumbled, one of the reasons. When they stayed away from the interest of knowledge that Islam encourages,
Because
and they
radical
became
Islam forbids science.
no,
that's
that wasn't
why.
radical Islam.
No,
that was
but they
lazy
were-
Islam. They did not encourage the thriving of the society and progression. Rather, they stayed in their harems, haram, and had women and wine, and that's it. They corrupted the people, and the people corrupted them, and the society, Islamic society crumbled.